Hello and welcome to the English Box. Today we are going to speak about the future tense in English. On the board in front of you, you can see the three different forms that we use to express the future tense in English in conversation. The first form that we are going to look at is going to. The second form that we are going to look at is will plus the infinitive, and the third form that we are going to look at is the present continuous plus a time expression. We often use these three forms quite interchangeably, but there are certain situations in which we prefer to use one of the particular forms. In this video, we're going to discuss the structure of these forms, and then we're going to look at the use of these three different forms. So let's begin with going to and the structure. We start with the subject, so I, you, he, she, it, we or they. And then we have the auxiliary verb to be. And then we have going to. And finally we have the main verb. So for example, I am going to watch TV. You are going to play squash, he is going to scoff sweets, we are going to eat out, and they are going to skip class. Now in conversation, we often make a number of contractions. The first contraction we make is with the subject and the verb to be. So I am becomes I'm, you are, you're, he is, he's, we are, we're, and they are, there. Secondly, we make a contraction with going to. Instead of saying going to, it's very common to say gonna. So the sentence becomes, I'm gonna watch TV, you're gonna play squash, he's gonna scoff sweets, we're gonna eat out, and they're gonna skip class. Notice that there is less emphasis on the gonna than on the main verb. I'm going to watch TV. To make this sentence negative, all you have to do is to add not to the auxiliary verb to be. I'm not going to watch TV. You aren't going to play squash, for example. To ask a question or to make a question, all you have to do is invert the subject and the auxiliary verb to be. Are you going to play squash, for example? Or are we going to eat out? Or are they going to skip class? So that's the structure, but when do we use going to? Well, we use going to for planned actions that are going to take place in the future. These are actions decided upon before the moment of speaking. So for example, if you were going to talk about your plans for this weekend, you would most likely use going to. What are you going to do this weekend? I'm going to meet some friends for lunch. I'm going to play football on Saturday afternoon. I'm going to rest on Sunday because I have to work on Monday, for example. So here you can see how we use going to for the future. What about will plus the infinitive? First of all, we have the structure, the subject, then the auxiliary verb will, and then the main verb. I will help you with your bags, for example, or you will never guess who I saw. Again, it's very common to use the contracted form LL or I'll. You'll, he'll, we'll, or they'll. In fact, it sounds quite unnatural if you don't use this contracted form. So it's very important. I'll help you with your bags. You'll never guess who I saw. It'll rain tomorrow. We'll pick him up from school, or they'll offer him the job. To make these sentences negative, you have to add not to the auxiliary verb will. This becomes won't in the contracted form. I won't help you with your bags. Very impolite. To make a question, we invert the subject and the auxiliary verb will. Will it rain tomorrow? Will they offer him the job, for example? So that's the structure, but when do we use this form? Well, if we look at the next slide, we can see our answers to this question. Firstly, we use it for spontaneous decisions, so things decided in the moment of speaking. For example, oops, you've dropped your pen, I'll pick it up for you. So this isn't a planned action, this is an unplanned action. And it sounds strange in English if you use going to in this situation. Or many people also use the present simple. They say, I pick it up for you. It's very important to use this will form. I'll pick it up for you. Secondly, we use it to make predictions or deductions. We often use it with maybe or perhaps, also to suggest uncertainty. I think it'll rain tomorrow. In this instance, you can also use going to. It's more or less interchangeable. I think it's going to rain tomorrow. I think it'll rain tomorrow. I think they'll offer him the job. I think they're going to offer him the job. But will always suggests a little bit more uncertainty than going to. Number 3, we use it with the first conditional in the main clause to describe the likely or probable consequence of an action. If you study hard, you will pass the exam. And finally, we use it to express the fact that a certain behavior is typical of someone. He's so lazy. He'll sit in front of the television all day long if you don't tell him to do something. So this laziness is a character trait, and so something that's typical of his behavior is that he'll sit around in the armchair and do nothing. So the final form is the present continuous form. Now it's very important to use this form with a time expression, otherwise it means the action is occurring in this moment. So for the structure, we have the subject, then the auxiliary verb to be, then the main verb with ing, and the time expression. So I am going home at 7, you are meeting friends at 6, he's performing on Friday, we're eating out on Saturday, and they are going out tomorrow. If you want to make this negative, again, make the auxiliary verb to be negative, and if you want to make a question, invert the auxiliary verb to be and the subject. So, are you meeting friends at 6? Is he performing on Friday? Are we eating out on Saturday? And are they going out tomorrow? So we've looked at the structure. What about the use? Well, present continuous is used in a similar way to the going to future for planned actions, but it's very important to use this time expression, or from the context, the time has to be obvious. We are normally a little bit more confident that the action is going to occur when we use the present continuous, and is more often used for actions that are going to occur in the near future. In the distant future, we use going to. So let's look at the dialogue at the bottom of the page in the blue box, and here it has some examples. What are you guys going to do at the weekend? Or what are you guys doing at the weekend? I'm quite busy. I'm watching the footy game on Saturday, and I'm meeting up with friends in the evening. I'm not doing anything on Sunday afternoon though. Do you fancy going for a coffee? So here we can see 2 or 3 different examples of the present continuous with a time expression. Doing, present continuous, at the weekend, time expression. Watching, present continuous, on Saturday, the time expression. Meeting friends, we have the continuous, in the evening, the time expression. And doing nothing on Sunday, doing, we have the present continuous, and Sunday, the time expression.